The WTA never interferes with Grand Slam wildcards, but sources inside Roland Garros just revealed they made an exception for one player, and the tennis world is furious. The 21-year-old Filipina lost in the first round. 6-4, 6-2, 1 hour and 40 minutes. Her singles ranking is set to drop from number 37 to number 42. By every traditional metric, her French Open campaign was a failure. But behind closed doors, the governing body of women's tennis is reportedly doing something unprecedented, urging tournament director Amelie Mauresmo to hand Alex Eala a wild card into next year's main draw, not for her results, for her impact. The Eala effect has officially crossed the line from fan phenomenon to political negotiation, and the backlash is already deafening. Paris, France, May 28, 2026, 9:17 a.m. The Roland Garros tournament office and a phone call that was never supposed to become public. Let me set the scene for you. The morning after Alex Eala's first-round exit, the Roland Garros tournament office was quieter than usual. The crowds were already gathering for the day's matches, but in the private suite overlooking Court Philippe Chatrier, the atmosphere was tense. Amelie Mauresmo, the tournament director and a former world number one, sat at her desk, her face unreadable. On the other end of the line was a senior WTA official. The conversation was supposed to be confidential, but whispers travel fast in the insular world of professional tennis, and within hours the news had leaked. The WTA is urging us to consider Alex Eala for a wild card into the 2027 French Open main draw, a source inside the tournament later confirmed. The room fell silent. Eala had just lost to number 17 seed Eva Jovic, 6-4, 6-2. She had not won a single set. She had never advanced past the first round at Roland Garros in 3 attempts. Her ranking was projected to drop from number 37 to number 42. By every traditional metric, she did not deserve a wild card. But the WTA was not thinking about metrics, they were thinking about the Eala effect. 40,000 fans who had crashed the ticketing system, the Philippine flags that had filled the stands, the 110 million Filipinos who had watched her matches on television, the OFWs who had drained their savings to travel across continents. The numbers don't lie, the source continued. When Eala plays, ticket sales spike. When she loses, the interest doesn't fade. She fills stadiums, she drives revenue, and the WTA knows that if she's not in the draw, they're leaving money on the table. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours, the Eala wildcard hashtag was trending worldwide. The leak was confirmed by multiple sources. The WTA declaredo comment, but the silence from the governing body was louder than any statement. Let me take you inside the backlash that erupted after the news broke, because what should have been a routine wildcard discussion became a full-blown crisis. The critics were quick to voice their objections. How could a player who had never won a match at Roland Garros be considered for a wild card? What message did it send to the players who had fought through qualifying, who had earned their spots through rankings and results? This is outrageous, one analyst wrote on social media. There are players ranked outside the top 100 who have to win 3 matches just to get into the main draw, and the WTA wants to hand a wild card to someone who lost in the first round and never won a match at the tournament? Because she sells tickets? The Eala effect is real, but so is fairness. You can't bypass the system just because a player is popular. Others defended the move, pointing out that wild cards have always been about more than rankings. They are about marketability, about drawing crowds, about growing the sport. Every Grand Slam gives wild cards to players who don't deserve them by ranking. French players get them every year, former champions get them, juniors get them. Why is it a scandal when Alex might get one? The WTA is a business, and Alex Eala is good for business. That's not corruption, that's capitalism. The WTA's official wild card selection criteria have always been vague, giving tournament directors broad discretion. At Roland Garros, wild cards are typically reserved for French players, promising juniors, and returning stars. Recipients for the 2026 women's main draw included Clara Burel, Xenia Efremova, Fiona Farrow, and Leo. A wild card for a non-French player would be unusual. A wild card for a player who had just lost in the first round and never won a match at the tournament would be unprecedented. But the WTA, still reeling from the prize money controversy and the player revolt earlier in the year, was desperate for good news. And Alex Eala, despite her early exit, was good news. She's not just a tennis player, a WTA insider told a French sports newspaper. She's a movement, and movements, in the end, change everything. The tournament director sat in her office, the phone still warm in her hand. The WTA had made its position clear. Now, she had to make hers. Let me take you inside Amelie Mauresmo's dilemma, because what she decided would shape not just the 2027 French Open but the future of wild cards in professional tennis. Mauresmo knows champions. As a former world #1 and two-time Grand Slam winner, she has stood where the greats stand. As the tournament director of Roland Garros, she has shaped the clay season's crown jewel. She is not easily influenced. But the WTA's request had put her in an impossible position. On one hand, she understood the logic. Alex Eala brought eyeballs, she brought passion, she brought the kind of energy that filled stadiums and made the sport feel alive. The Eala effect is real, Mauresmo had reportedly said. To her deputies. I've seen it myself. The flags, the chants, the tears. It's unlike anything I've ever witnessed. But on the other hand, she had a responsibility to the integrity of the tournament. Wild cards were not supposed to be popularity contests. They were supposed to be opportunities for rising stars, for returning champions, for players who had earned a second chance. If we give her a wild card, what do we tell the players who qualified? What do we tell the French juniors who have been dreaming of this moment their whole lives? Her deputies had no easy answers. The debate raged for hours. Meanwhile, across Paris, Alex Eala was packing her bags, preparing to leave for Mallorca. She had not heard about the wild card discussions. She was focused on the grass season, on Wimbledon, on the next challenge. But her fans had heard, and they were not staying silent. Give her the wild card. She's earned it, not with wins, but with heart. The system is broken, Alex is proof. Give her a chance to prove herself on the biggest stage. Laban Alex, we'll be there whether they invite you or not. The hashtag #IlaWildCard continued to trend. The pressure mounted, and Amelie Mauresmo, one of the most respected figures in tennis, faced the most difficult decision of her career. Paris, France, May 31, 2026, the final day of the French Open. And an announcement that left no one satisfied. Let me take you inside the moment Amelie Mauresmo made her decision, because what she chose was not a victory for either side, it was a compromise. And compromises, in the world of professional tennis, please no one. The press conference was brief. Mauresmo stood at the podium, her face calm, her words measured. We've heard the discussions regarding wild cards for future tournaments. The French Tennis Federation has not made any final decisions regarding the 2027 main draw. The room leaned in. However, we have decided to extend an invitation to Alex Eala to participate in the 2027 French Open qualifying tournament. She will not receive a main draw wild card. She will have to earn her place just like every other player outside the top 100. The journalists scribbled furiously. The reactions were immediate and divided. A qualifying wild card? That's not nothing, but it's not what the WTA wanted. She still has to win 3 matches just to get into the main draw. That's fair, that's tennis. The WTA asked for a main draw wild card. They got a qualifier. Mauresmo held the line. The WTA declined to comment. Alex Eala released a brief statement. Alex is focused on the grass season. She will compete wherever she earns the right to compete. She has never asked for handouts, she will not start now. The statement was diplomatic, but the message was clear. Eala would not beg for a wild card, she would earn her spot, or she would not play. The controversy faded from the headlines, the French Open crowned its champion, the tennis world moved on. But the question lingered, not about wild cards, not about rankings, but about the very nature of sport itself. Should a player's impact be measured only by results, or does popularity, marketability, and the ability to inspire millions count for something? The answer, as it turned out, was not found in a press release or a social media post. It was found in the flags that continued to wave, in the chants that continued to echo, in the 40,000 fans who had crashed a ticketing system just to watch a first-round loser fight. The ALA effect was not about winning, it was about connection, and no amount of controversy could sever that bond. The question that remains is simpler than it seems. When the next generation of Filipino athletes steps onto the world stage, inspired by the flags they saw in Paris, by the chants they heard from the stands, by the player who was offered a wild card not because she won, but because she mattered, Will they remember Eala's victories, or will they remember the moment the tennis establishment realized that some fighters are too powerful to ignore? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Court Legacy for more stories that go beyond the scoreline. The WTA reportedly urged French Open tournament director Amelie Mauresmo to grant Alex Eala a main draw wild card for the 2027 French Open following her first-round loss to Eva Jovic, 6-4, 6-2. Sources inside Roland Garros confirmed that the governing body, recognizing the ALA effect and her massive marketability, pressured tournament officials to bypass the ranking system. The news leaked, sparking a global debate. Critics called it unfair and commercialization. Supporters argued that wild cards have always been about more than results. Mauresmo ultimately offered Eala a qualifying wild card. She would have to win 3 matches to reach the main draw. Eala's camp declined to comment but released a statement saying, "Alex has never asked for handouts, she will not start now." The WTA has not issued an official response. The controversy has intensified discussions about wildcard policies, and Eala's ranking is projected to drop from number 37 to number 42. She has shifted her focus to the grass season in Wimbledon.